I was never a religious person. God, heaven, hell, those concepts never played a role in my life. Honestly, I thought there might be something out there, but I never spent much time thinking about it. My routine was simple: school, social media, hanging out with friends. I lived in the moment, not worrying about what came next. Until that day, it was supposed to be just another normal day. I was crossing the street with my best friend Endo over something trivial when everything happened too fast. The deafening sound of the horn, the screams around me, the impact. I felt my body being thrown back like a rag doll. But the strange thing is that in the next instant, I felt nothing. And then I saw the scene before me, my own body lying on the asphalt, motionless. My friend was kneeling beside it, screaming my name, while others rushed around in a panic. But I was no longer there. I was above, floating, watching it all in a way that shouldn't have been possible. It was at that moment I understood. I was dead. Panic gripped me. I tried to scream, I tried to run towards my body, but I no longer had legs or a voice. I was simply consciousness. Suddenly, a force I couldn't see began to pull me back with an indescribable strength. At first, I thought I was headed to heaven, being taken toward the light, but that wasn't what happened. Instead, darkness enveloped me. It wasn't just any darkness. It was thick, suffocating, as if it were a living presence around me. Absolute silence was replaced by whispers, voices that seemed to blend together, saying things I didn't understand, but which filled me with a deep, primal fear. The cold I felt wasn't just physical. It was something that penetrated my soul. It was then. The darkness continued to pull me, and the feeling of terror heightened with each second. I tried to fight against it. I tried to cling to something, but there was nothing but that suffocating emptiness. The voices were whispering louder now, some laughing, others crying, and some simply repeating my name in a distorted way, as if mocking me. I felt something approaching, something I couldn't see, but which filled me with a fear I had never felt before. It was as if that thing was waiting for me, eager to devour me. For the first time, I understood what absolute despair meant. No one could help me. I was alone, and worst of all, deep down, I knew I belonged in that place. It was then that a voice tore through the darkness like thunder. Enough. The moment the word was spoken, the shadow around me recoiled, as if it had been burned. A light suddenly burst forth, cutting through everything like a sword of fire. The heat of the light was so intense that it made me feel exposed, as if it were revealing every part of me, every mistake, every lie, every moment of my life that I wanted to hide. And then, in the midst of that light, I saw him. I didn't need explanations. I knew who he was. Jesus was before me, and his gaze wasn't one of anger or condemnation, but of something far worse. He looked at me as if he could see everything I was and everything I could have been. And there, in front of him, I realized something I had never thought of before. I wanted to speak. I wanted to ask why this was happening to me. I wanted to plead for another chance, but I couldn't. Before him, there were no excuses, no argument. I could only feel, and what I felt was overwhelming. Every wrong choice I made, every time I ignored a calling within me, every lie I told, every moment I chose to turn away from the truth. And then, without him needing to say anything, the visions began. My life unfolded before me, as if I were watching a movie, but the pain of each scene was real. I saw myself laughing at those who spoke of God. I saw myself ignoring the pain of others simply because I didn't want to get involved. The worst part, I saw the opportunities I had to change that I dismissed without a second thought. It's not that I had never felt an emptiness. I had never asked myself if there was something more. Yes, I felt it many times, but I pushed it away, distracted by life, by the hustle, by the desire to live my own way. Now, before him, I understood what that had cost me. Then the visions changed. I was no longer seeing the past, but something that had yet to happen. The world before me was different, unrecognizable. The sky was covered by a grotesque darkness. The streets ablaze. People were running screaming, hiding from something they couldn't fully see, but they could feel it. Pure terror in the air, the suffocating sensation that something was about to devour. Shadowy figures walked among the living, and the worst part was that people weren't fleeing from them. They were following them, as if they were hypnotized, leading them straight to destruction, completely unaware. Then I heard his voice again, firm, as if it were a sentence. "This is what is to come." Every part of me shuddered. I knew, somehow, that this was not just a vision, it was a warning. Before I could process what I had just seen, everything changed again. I felt my body being dragged down, as if I were falling freely, but there was no wind, no end. The heat increased every second. And then came the smell, an unbearable stench of burnt flesh, of decay, of something not of this world. Terror gripped me even before I could see what was around me. And then I fell. The ground was rough hot, and when I looked up, everything around me was destruction. Flames erupted from all sides, but they were unlike any fire we know. This fire didn't consume, but tortured. Screams cut through the air, cries of pain, of regret, of absolute despair. And it was then that I saw the faces, people I knew, schoolmates, acquaintances, people I knew existed but had never paid attention to. There they were, writhing, crying, screaming my name, as if I could do something for them. One of them was a close friend, someone I had spent years without. But the look he gave me was different than anything I had ever seen in my life. It was the look of someone who understood too late that they would never escape from there. I wanted to run, wanted to flee, but where to? It seemed endless, and the worst part was the feeling, the overwhelming certainty that there was no hope there. Time did not exist. There was no tomorrow, no after, nothing but that pain, that eternal torment. The desperation was so great that I screamed with all my might, begging someone to take me out of there, and then I felt a firm hand gripping my wrist. The same voice that had pulled me from darkness echoed again. "You can't help them now." In that very moment, I was dragged away from there. The heat, the screams, the despair vanished in an instant, and I found myself in his presence once more. I looked at Jesus, and I didn't need to ask anything. He knew what I was feeling. He understood that this had shattered me inside. With a sad look in his eyes, he said, "People choose that destiny by rejecting me, by living as if nothing matters until it's too late." I felt like my heart was going to explode, if it still had won. Those words weighed like a sentence. People choose that destiny. I wanted to scream that it wasn't fair, that no one chooses to go to that place, that no one wants to be there. But deep down, I knew it was true. I had spent my life ignoring it all. How many times had I had the chance to see? How many times had someone talked to me about God and I had simply laughed, shrugged, or just ignored them? How many times had I felt inside that something was wrong, that there was a void that nothing could fill? And still, I pretended that everything was fine. Now before him, I knew the answer. My whole life had been a warning, but I never wanted to listen. Now I saw clearly. The world was filled with people exactly like me, living as if there was always time, as if it wasn't real. But it wasn't real. It was more real than anything I had ever felt in my existence. Suddenly my gaze was drawn to something in the distance. A huge gate made of light, immense, radiant, unlike anything I had ever seen. Even from afar, I could feel what was on the other side. Peace, a peace I had never experienced before, greater than any fleeting happiness I had felt on earth. I knew that this was heaven, and those who entered through those gates never experience pain again. But then I saw something that caused a knot in my chest. People were being dragged back, pulled away before they could enter. They were screaming, crying, pleading in the name of Jesus, but the gates would not open for them. I couldn't understand it. If they cried out to him, why couldn't they? I looked at Jesus, trying to comprehend, and he answered before I could ask. "Not everyone who calls me Lord truly belongs to me. Many know me by name, but they have never truly given their hearts." Those words hit me like a punch to the gut. How many people did I know who called themselves Christians, but lived as if God were just a distant idea. How many went to church out of habit, out of tradition, but never really surrendered their hearts to Him? And worse yet, how many believed they were secure just because they said His name now and then, but never truly got to know Him? The vision of the gate left me frozen. It was as if a truth that had always been there, but that no one wanted to see, had been laid bare before me. Many of those people genuinely believed they were going to heaven, but at the last moment, they were dragged. I wanted to close my eyes, to turn away from what I was seeing, but it was impossible. The pain on their faces, the anguish in their cries, the despair of those who realized too late that they had never been prepared, that shattered me inside. It was different seeing those who went to hell because they, deep down, knew they never cared. But those people, they believed they were saved, yet they weren't. It was then that I saw the book. It appeared before me, floating in the midst of that immense light. In it were written the names of those who truly belonged to God. I wanted to approach. I wanted to see the names there. Then, when the pages began to move on their own, my heart raced. I saw empty spaces, names that should have been there but simply weren't. The void where their names should have been felt like an open wound. And, worse yet, I saw names disappearing. They were written there for a moment, but then they vanished, as if they had never existed. People who once followed God but strayed away, who traded the truth for fleeting things, who decided that the world was more important. People who once walked in faith but gave up before the end. I looked at Jesus, hoping He would tell me there was still time for them, but His gaze was serious. I swallowed hard. I had never felt such fear in my life. Before I could say anything, a different presence appeared beside me, a being immense, radiant, with an indescribable authority. I knew it was an angel, but not one like those we see in paintings or movies. He was imposing, powerful, and his voice thundered as he spoke. The time is coming. Judgment is near. Many will be lost. His words echoed within me like a sentence, their weight overwhelming. I looked around, trying to grasp the gravity of it all. Everything was connecting. The world was sinking into darkness, and no one seemed to notice. Time was running out, yet most people were too distracted to see it. They were too busy with their lives, their problems, their social media, their daily distractions to notice what truly mattered. The urgency of it hit me so hard that I felt my own spirit trembling. I wanted to scream, to warn everyone to do something, but the angel just looked at me. And in that gaze, there was an inevitable certainty most would not believe. It was then that Jesus approached me. His expression was serene, yet it carried a sadness I couldn't explain. "You need to tell what you saw," he said. "As long as there is life, there is hope, but time is running out." I felt my throat close up. I wanted to argue, to say that no one would believe me, that everyone would say it was just a dream, that it was all in my head. But I knew I had no choice. It wasn't about whether people would believe or not. It was about speaking the truth, giving the warning, giving people the chance to see before it was too late. I didn't know how, didn't know where to start. But something inside me understood that this was my mission. Jesus looked at me one more time, and without saying anything, everything around me began to fade away. I felt my body being pulled back, as if I were being drawn into a whirlwind. The light vanished, his voice became distant, and then I woke up. My eyes flew open, and everything around me seemed a blur. Voices, lights, the strong smell of the hospital. I felt my heart racing, my breathing erratic. There were doctors and nurses around me, and my family was there crying, as if they had just seen me die. And then came the phrase that changed everything. She was dead for 3 minutes. 3 minutes. I felt the tears streaming down my face without even realizing it. How could I put into words something that was far beyond what any human being could comprehend? I knew that nobody would understand. For the doctors, it would just be a case of successful resuscitation. And for others, perhaps a delusion caused by a lack of oxygen. But I knew the truth. I had seen it, felt it, and now nothing would ever be the same again. In the following days, I tried to ignore what had happened. I tried to move on, to convince myself that maybe it was just my mind playing tricks. But it was impossible because the memories were there, vivid as if they were still happening. Moreover, strange things began to occur. At night, I felt presences in my room, shadows that seemed to watch me, whispers that arose from nowhere, whispering things I couldn't understand, but that sent chills down my spine. The worst part was the sleep paralysis. I had never experienced that before, but now it happened frequently. I would wake up, but my body wouldn't move. I felt something watching me, something that wanted to silence me, that wanted me to forget what I had seen. But the first time that happened, I tried to speak, and when I finally could, only one word came out of my mouth: Jesus. And at that very moment, the presence vanished, the fear dissipated, and I knew, without a doubt, that everything I had seen was real. After that night, I knew my life would never be the same again. I couldn't ignore what had happened. I couldn't pretend that any of it was not real, so I started to talk. At first, it was difficult. When I told my family, I saw the way they looked at me, with pity, with doubt, as if they were only listening out of courtesy, but not truly believing. My friends, some laughed, others said I must have had a hallucination, and some simply distanced themselves, as if what I was saying made them uncomfortable. But I kept talking because deep down I knew it was necessary. And the truth is that, amidst all the disbelief, some people genuinely began to listen. Some of them approached me in secret, asking for more information, wanting to understand, wanting to know what they could do to avoid ending up like those I had seen in hell. Those were the people for whom I knew it was worth continuing. Even if the whole world called me crazy, even if they ignored me, if just one person understood the truth and changed their way, then it would all be worth it. But talking about this brought consequences. I thought the worst was over, but I was wrong. Since I started sharing what I saw, the spiritual attacks increased. Sometimes I felt an invisible pressure on me, a horrible sensation that something wanted to silence me. Other times my sleep was invaded by nightmares so vivid that I would wake up crying, feeling as if I were still in that darkness. But every time it happened, I did what I had learned to do. I called his name, and always, always, the darkness would retreat. This made me understand something I had never known before. The name of Jesus has power, and if something is trying to silence me, it means my mission is even more important than I thought. I can't stop. I won't stop, because I know that time is running out. I began to see the world. Before, everything seemed normal. Life continued as always, filled with distractions and trivial concerns. But now I saw something that had been hidden. I saw how people were blind, living their lives as if tomorrow was guaranteed, as if eternity didn't exist. I saw how many called themselves believers, yet lived without real commitment, as if God were just an accessory to meet their need. And I saw more than ever the invisible battle happening around us. Evil doesn't need to appear explicitly. It infiltrates daily life in thoughts and the little choices that drift us away from the truth without us realizing. And now that I saw this clearly, I could no longer close my eyes. I couldn't keep pretending none of this was real. I realized my mission wasn't to convince anyone, because even Jesus didn't force people to believe in him. My mission was to speak, to warn, to share what I saw, and let each person make their choice. In the end, it all comes down to that: choice. God doesn't send anyone to hell. People send themselves there by rejecting him, ignoring the signs, living as if nothing mattered. I was almost one of those people. I almost didn't get a second chance. And I know many won't, so I speak, I share. Some laugh, others ignore, but some listen. And if just one of them changes their destiny because of what I'm saying, then it will have all been worth it, because I know what's coming. I've seen it. Time is running out, and when the door closes, there will be no turning back. Sometimes I wonder why I came back. Why I had that chance when so many others simply die without ever knowing the truth. I don't know the full answer. But I know it wasn't by chance. I know it wasn't just for me. It was so I could speak out, so I could shout if necessary, to let people know what awaits them if they keep living on autopilot without paying attention to what really matters. But that's the scariest part. Most people don't want to listen. They'd rather believe that everything will be fine, that there's plenty of time, that God understands. I see in their eyes the same thought I've had all my life. That can't happen to me, but it can, and it will. I know it because I've seen it. I wish I could say that or that. My life got easier, but the truth is, it got harder. There's an invisible resistance, something that seems to try to silence me all the time. Since I started talking about this, I've faced more spiritual attacks than ever. Sometimes I feel a presence in my room at night, trying to paralyze me, trying to make me give up. Other times, strange thoughts arise out of nowhere, as if a voice were trying to convince me that it was all just a dream. I can't, because every time I close my eyes, I remember the darkness, the voices, the gaze of those trapped in the hell of despair, in the cries of those who were turned away from the gate of heaven. I remember the weight of Jesus' gaze, and I know that no matter what happens, I must keep going. Maybe some people reading this will just scroll down, laughing or ignoring it, convinced that I'm just another crazy person. That's okay, but I know that someone will feel it differently. Someone will read this and feel a knot in their chest, feel something within them saying that this is true, that this warning is for that person. If it's you, please don't ignore it. Don't treat this as just another story on the internet. I'm not trying to scare anyone. I'm just sharing what I saw, what I felt, what I lived, and I'm saying, don't wait until it's too late. Don't live thinking you can change your mind at the last second, because there may not be a last second. All I know is that my mission is to speak, to tell, and I will keep doing this until my last day, because I know time is running out. The world is changing, things are speeding up, and those who have eyes to see and ears to hear know that something different is happening. What I saw wasn't a warning just for me, it was for everyone. I don't know how many will believe. I only know that when the door closes, no one will be able to say they weren't warned. If all of this were just a delusion, why do so many people around the world report such similar experiences? And if it's real, if time is really running out? Now I want to know, have you ever had any unexplained spiritual experience? What do you think about all this? Tell me in the comments, because your opinion is very important. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss transformative content like this. Here we talk about truths that many prefer to ignore, but that can change lives. And since you've made it this far, I highly recommend you watch the next video that will appear on the screen now. It might open your eyes even more. See you there. Take care.